Hello and welcome to the Educators Podcast. I am Vishal Bagaita, the founder of Educator and your host for this podcast. The Educators Podcast is an opportunity for you to learn more about what goes into creating the learning resources on educator.com. In our 6th episode, we are joined by Jenny Liu from Westbound Maths. Jenny has transitioned from delivering A-level maths courses in person to online courses, so let's learn more about Jenny's work. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello Jenny, thank you very much for joining me today on the Educators Podcast. Please could you introduce yourself, providing some insight into your background?
So hi, my name is Jenny Liu, and I am a London-based instructor. I have been doing math tutoring and weekend class teaching since 2017, after I graduated from Cambridge University with a master's degree in economics. So since then, I taught at a few different institutes, including the Millwall Youth Football Club, focused primarily on maths. In 2018, I founded a company called Westbound Maths with a friend, which is based in North London, that specializes in intensive math training for A-level students. So the idea of the course is to help them with exam preparation and grade improvement. So we have been partnering with local schools for 2 years in a row now, and the results we had has been great. So over 88% of our past students improved their final grades by at least one band in the final exam compared to the predicted grades. So that's kind of our background, and now we are aiming to bring the courses online so that it can reach a broader audience of students.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And so you mentioned you graduated with an economics degree. And
Yes.
so I'm quite curious about how you came down this path of teaching maths and what's prompted you to sort of take this forward as a career.
Yeah, sure. So I think for starter, math is a very useful subject as it serves as a foundation to other quantitative subjects, including economics, as you mentioned, or like physics or other science-based subjects. So as an economics student, we're like trained as economists through both my undergraduate and graduate degree. I found math as the recurring kind of foundation to any quantitative model, any economic kind of principle that is built on top. So in addition to the theories and the concepts taught in A-level maths, I think students also get trained to develop this analytical mindset or like logical thinking and then problem solving skills. So I found this process of both learning and teaching maths quite stimulating and rewarding. So hence my choice to teach maths.
Excellent. Okay. And so you talked about you're trying to bring the teaching that you do to a broader audience, and that's been a factor in creating maths video content. Can you tell me a little bit more about that journey and the transition from sort of teaching in person to creating videos?
Yeah, sure. So I think when we first started, as I mentioned, I started as a math tutor, and I've been doing that for kind of on and off during my university years and then during my master's degree and even right after. So one thing that is quite frustrating to me as a math tutor is that I often kind of go back to a student and then realize that something I taught, him or her last week, and then this week they forget about it or they truly didn't understand it. So what I found is that there always seems to be kind of a knowledge gap, but students don't know what that gap is because they don't fully understand it. So that's kind of the genesis of why I want to do a structured math course, in the sense that it has both the width and the breadth to cover the entire syllabus and to really focus on creating this blanket coverage of everything that students need to know. So that prompted us to found the company and then really targeting this like structured course. So we initially started off, doing it in North London where we're based, and then partnering with local schools. So when we're doing in-person classroom training, we have a couple of resources available to students, such as, the class notes, the homework, the detailed solution, and of course we use the whiteboard for demonstration whenever we're teaching in class. So now, since the start of this year, is more kind of in response to the COVID situation here in the UK, we moved our courses online. And then when we're doing online teaching and reaching a broader audience, we kind of thought about what media, what different kind of means we need to take on to reach students virtually. So we decided to use pre-recorded videos to replace classroom teaching. And the concept is that as instructor, I would talk through the key concepts and do example demonstration on this virtual whiteboard. The slide deck and class note and homework and solutions have been inherited to the online course to supplement the class videos. So hoping that students will still get that same level or quality of training that they would online as in person.
Excellent. Okay. And in terms of the content that you've created, the first course that you've shared with me is focused on pure maths. Can you tell me a bit more about how you decided what to include and make sure it aligned to the curriculum?
Yeah, sure. So our first course covers the pure math subjects because they represent the largest portion of the qualification. So pure math subjects represents about 2/3 of the A-level math qualification, with the other 1/3 going to applied math, which is evenly split between mechanics and statistics. So these are the two subjects we'll cover in later courses as well. But because pure math make up such a large portion of the qualification, that is our primary kind of objective. And mastering pure math subjects are paramount to getting a good grade in A-level math. So the pure math course that we have with Educate All covers the entire A-level math syllabus outlined by the Department of Education. So one interesting thing to note here is that this syllabus is the same across all different exam boards, regardless of whether you're with AQA, Excel, OCR, or some other exam board. The underlying syllabus is the same. This is also kind of the foundation of our course. We design it so that it can fit any student from any exam board because the underlying concepts or the testable materials are the same. And this course is designed bearing several groups of students in mind. So we are targeting either year 12 or further math students who want to challenge themselves and then study the year 13 content ahead and get exam ready early on, or the year 13 students who are looking for like an intensive and comprehensive revision bootcamp that can help them improve grade like effectively.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. That's really good to understand. And so just want to dive into a look behind the scenes if I can, and try to understand a bit more about how you go about creating your
Yeah.
courses. So you mentioned that you use a digital whiteboard,
Mhm.
and I've obviously seen the content, so I can see that not only is a digital whiteboard visible, but there's
Yeah.
also a picture-in-picture view of yourself speaking
Yeah.
to the viewer.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit more about how you came to decide that this was the right approach for you?
Yeah, sure. I must admit this has been quite a steep learning curve for ourselves too, as we haven't done this before. And I think we opted in for this kind of picture-in-picture view primarily because we want to create an experience that is as similar to a in-person classroom training as possible, because we know that this in-person classroom training style works. So the slides and the classroom note go hand in hand. So essentially everything students can see on slides are, duplicated in class notes. And it helps them to kind of focus on the subjects and the concepts that I want to highlight during the class videos. And as you mentioned, I always kind of scribble over or do examples with students on the virtual whiteboard. So this is really try to showcase to them the different steps they can take in order to solve one problem. So both of these kind of methods are bearing students in mind, hoping that we will guide them through each lecture. And also the good thing that I later realized and I liked about the videos is that if the students miss anything, they can always go back to the slides and watch it or watch the classroom examples again until they finally understand it. The other thing I really liked is that doing the recording or the online videos allow us to use a suite of online resources such as like graphic calculator that can help us kind of visualize different concepts. So that I enjoy as well. And of course, the typical, the classic resources such as the homework and the solutions are still available to students online so that they can have the same practice as our offline students.
Of course, yeah. Okay. And I mean, it's quite interesting that you talked about some of those benefits of learning online through this medium. And I think you're right that, students can obviously pause videos just to make sure that they've understood something,
Yeah.
and consolidate that before they maybe move on to the next part of their learning journey. And so
Mhm.
I think, yeah, that's something which still feels underestimated.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm sure it will be utilized more widely as we go forward. The other part I wanted to touch on was your journey for creating the videos. You mentioned that there was a steep learning curve.
Mhm.
Can you tell me a bit more about your workflow? I mean, just trying to understand for someone who might be looking to create their own video content
Mhm.
and trying to understand, how much time is required
Yeah.
um, for each step of that journey. Can you
Mhm.
share a bit of insight into that, please?
Yeah, sure, of course. I would say creating a online course is similar to creating an offline course in many ways. I think the primary thing or the most important thing is always the content. So we started with a top-down approach in the sense that we first decided that we're going to cover the pure math subjects um, for reasons that we discussed before. And then it's a matter of breaking that content into, say, in our case, we broke it down into 10 different lectures. And each lecture is between 1 to 2 hours, closing in on 2 hours to cover a certain topic. And in some of the bigger topics, it takes over 2 lectures. So I think we arrived at that structure first. And then we fit all of the materials that we want to teach within a certain topic in that lecture. And once we have that, I think the transition from the offline course to the online course is really, what drives us to look for different tools, whether it's video recording or video editing. I've never done anything like this before, I must admit, and I thought it would be quite daunting and scary. And then what I found out is that there are a lot of free resources, or even amazing and fantastic free applications online that aid with video recording and video editing. I don't think I can, we can talk about their brands because it's not a advertising session. But I think for anyone who's looking to create courses online, definitely go ahead, because it's not going to be as scary as it seems. And yeah, I rather enjoy the process. It's quite challenging and stimulating for me.
Okay. And can you give some insight into, say, the balance of activity in terms of sort of time spent between
Mhm.
recording the content and editing the content?
I would say the first video that any instructor record is going to take a long time. I would say the first video I recorded, which is like a 2 hour lecture, took me about a whole day. So that's about 8 hours just to record and edit. But once you get the hang of it, it's gonna drastically kind of reduce. So right now, for a 2 hour lecture, it takes me about 4 to 5 hours to do the whole recording and editing kind of process. I would still say recording takes up the most time. It takes up about 80 to 90% of the 4 to 5 hours, and the remaining 10% really goes into editing and then putting the material online, etc.
I see. Okay. And for the length of the videos that you create, it'd be quite
Mhm.
interesting to understand whether you prepare a script
Mhm.
in any detail, or whether it's a case of some bullet points that you use to jog your memory to be clear on what you need to cover next.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a really good question, because the script almost is like the structure of the course. By having the structure of the topic in mind, I think it really helps with the flow of each class video. So for example, if today I want to talk about sequence and series, then I know there are 3 topics: arithmetic, and then geometric, and then other kind of special cases in mind I want to talk about. And then within each topic, I break it down into, the first part is the key concept, second part is the class example, and then followed by like a classroom exercise. So I think by structuring your course in the way that with a certain kind of structure in mind, it naturally helps with the flow of the course. There are certain parts, I would say, the introduction and the ending part, that a script might be able to help. But as I'm going through the actual concepts, I do find it to be a natural flow that takes me from one topic to the other.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That was really interesting to hear that insight. So good to know how you've gone about creating your courses. Jenny, that's been a real pleasure having you on the podcast today. Appreciate all of that. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Visual. Pleasure's all mine.
This episode was shorter than previous ones, but no less filled with insight. While Jenny alluded to a learning curve for developing digital resources, it was interesting to hear about the parallels between teaching in person and via video courses. If you are interested in uploading materials to Educatool, please send an email to info@educatool.com. You will also find information about getting started on Educatool in the guidance part of the website. Don't forget that you can find links to courses in the show notes and the social media posts that accompany the release of this episode. If you've got this far, thank you very much for listening. Please do like and share the podcast.